Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Today is May 3rd. It's our regular scheduled Board and County Commission meeting. If you could please rise. And we are going to do the invocation. Commissioner Hammond is going to be joining us with the invocation this morning.
Good morning. Let's bow our heads in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this amazing day here in Lee County, Florida. God, thank you that we get to live and do business here in one of the most beautiful places in the state of Florida. God, I want to lift our county up to you this morning. I want to lift the Board of County Commissioners up to you this morning. I pray that you would give us wisdom and discernment. Help us to do good work on behalf of the people you've called us to serve. Lord, I want to pray for our law enforcement and our first responders. I pray that you'll keep them safe as they go about their jobs today. I pray for our veterans, and I pray for the people who are actively serving us overseas and in the military right now. Lord, I pray that you'll keep them safe. Lord, I lift all these things up to you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. You join the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. You're still one of our best pastors. Pastor Hammond, I call him all the time.
Thank you, sir.
If you could, please silence your cell phones this morning during the public meeting. I appreciate that. And if we could, we have a couple ceremonials this morning. If I could have the first group come up from Lee Health Trauma. If they could come up, please. Trauma Awareness Month. I know Nick's, Grant's here, Katie, Sydney, Tracy, Nancy McGovern. Thank you all for coming this morning. Just stay right there, and I want to recognize you and everything you've done this year for our community. So we have the resolution that reads, whereas May is National Trauma Awareness Month, established by Congress and signed by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to raise attention to the devastating impact of traumatic injury has on individuals, families, and communities. Whereas motor vehicle crashes and falls resulting in blunt force trauma make up more than 75% of all trauma cases treated in the Trauma Services District each year. And whereas over 1.2 million people reside in Lee County Trauma Service District, comprised of Charlotte, Collier, Glades, Hendry, and Lee counties, serviced by the only trauma center of the Florida Gulf Coast between Sarasota and Miami. Thank you for being here. And for the last 28 years, the Lee County Trauma Service District has provided optimal care to injury patients to the 5-county region, and from 2000 to 2021 has treated 51,440 patients. Whereas now we recognize all the dedicated first responders, medical professionals who serve the injured patients in our community. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners in Lee County, Florida designates the month of May 2022 as Trauma Awareness Month to encourage all residents and visitors to be mindful, thankful first, encourage participation in injury prevention education to prove the health and safety of our community, signed by myself today, May 3rd. Thank you for being here today. Come on up here with a picture. Thank you. We did this last year for Sydney for her retirement, so thank you for still being here. Nancy?
I feel so safe with y'all in.
Tracy, thank you.
Congratulations. Nancy, how are you? Nice to see you.
We could get a picture together?
Yeah.
Katie, Nick, you going to get the picture? Or?
Sure.
More the better. Did Katie or somebody, Nick, need to get one for the group, or are you good? Okay, yeah, I thought you were trying to get one for the group.
Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you have, someone would like to say a few words? Yes, I would. Yeah, thank you. Just go to the podium right there, and it's already mic'd up. You don't have to touch anything. It's ready to go, doctor. Thank you.
My name is Noah Bork, B-O-U-R-K. I am the Trauma Program Manager for Lee Health at Gulf Coast Medical Center. As you know, this has been a big year for us with the move, and we would first like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for bestowing this honor upon us, but also to thank our partners in the community for whom this would not be possible, such as emergency medical services, the various fire departments, and law enforcement agencies that we work with to be able to care for all of the patients throughout the 5 counties which we serve. Thank you again for your time and for this great honor.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I served on the trauma committee for, I think, 8 years now, and I'm telling you, it's a great asset to have that in our region here with that, with our MedStar system we have for transport. So thank you for everything you do, everything. We have another ceremony by Commissioner Mann for the Rotarians. I think the Rotaries are here, but does anybody else have the resolution with them? Because Commissioner Mann is not here yet. So does any other commissioners, by any chance, they pass it on to anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to read the resolution if somebody could go grab it from Commissioner Mann's office.
Okay.
Oh, you know what, Mr. Chairman, I would defer to Commissioner Sandelli, our local Rotarian here on the board, to read that. That'd be fantastic.
Well, actually, Commissioner Sendo, while we wait for Deputy Manager Harner to go down and grab that, you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about your history with the Rotarians?
Well, I was, my first Rotary Club was in Anchorage, Alaska. I was doing some work up there for a development company. It was a great experience, an introduction to the community, to a lot of great people. Then I moved to Ohio, and Katie Arrington, who happens to be the mayor of Estero, she and I and her husband formed a club in Blue Ash, Ohio. And so we took that from an initial group of 34 to a great club. My kids got involved, and still when we go back to Cincinnati, they'll say, "Dad, remember those trees? We planted that." So it was great to see it generational. As the president of the Tampa Club, I had the opportunity to go to the World Conference in Copenhagen. And, we get involved in our little community, in our little group. When you go to a World Conference for those Rotarians, it's staggering. People from all over the world doing good things, a great bond, between the group and everything else. So I have a great affinity for Rotary. Service above self is the motto, and I think if we carry that motto in everything we do, that's one of the top 5 things. So,
Thank you.
How about you lead us in a song like they do at the Rotary meetings? I'm joking.
So far my term has been pretty good. I don't want to offend anybody here by me breaking.
Okay, Commissioner Sandelli, would you like
I'll be happy to read it. I don't want to steal any thunder from Frank, because he's been a great.
would the Rotarians like to come up this morning that was here this morning? Thank you for coming. And let's see if we got the right one.
Yeah.
Just stand if you could. Thank you for being here. This right there.
Good morning. Yep, you're perfect, right there.
Yeah.
Good morning. Glad y'all could join us this morning. Thank you.
Well, good morning. And I'll be more than happy to do this. If Frank walks in, I'll be happy to pass the baton.
Okay.
Board of County Commissioners resolution, whereas the oldest Rotary clubs in America, the Lakeland Rotary Club, wish to expand the service above self mission of Rotary to more parts of Florida, particularly Southwest Florida. And whereas the Lakeland Club itself was chartered only a few years after the first ever Rotary Club in Chicago, Illinois, and has been founded on February 23rd, 1905, through the efforts of Paul Harris. And by the way, myself, my wife, and my 3 kids are all Paul Harris Fellows, so we're very proud of that. Whereas being sponsored by the Lakeland Club, the Rotary Club of Fort Myers was founded on April 1st, 1922, as part of the rapidly growing organization of service clubs, with Mr. Ora Chapman serving as charter president. Whereas the Rotary Club of Fort Myers is the largest Rotary Club in Southwest Florida, and whereas the Rotary Club of Fort Myers, through the sponsorship of new clubs in the area, has become the parent and grandparent of 30 additional clubs, thus providing enormous additional service in a much larger region. Whereas 2,000 men and women from Lee County have been members of the club, and through that membership provided extensive, unselfish, and unpaid service to the community. Whereas through originally formed as an organization for men only, in 1993, Ruth Messner became the first female member of the club through the sponsorship, and then club president Franklin Mann, thus doubling the opportunity for both membership and community service. Whereas female leadership helped the club advance to the first female president, being Gay Thompson, and many others to follow. Over $2.5 million have been raised and spent on worthwhile projects by the Rotary Club of Fort Myers for the entire community. And uncontrollable thousands of hours of volunteer labor has been expended by the club's members for the betterment of the community. Whereas numerous business leaders, public officials, including legislators, mayors, judges, and county commissioners, have been proud to be known as members of the Rotary Club of Fort Myers. And Whereas it is fitting and appropriate to recognize the 100th anniversary of this superb service organization. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida does proudly take observance of this landmark occasion and does officially say thank you for your many achievements and betterment of mankind in our local community, and offers a very happy club anniversary to all members, past and present, and further does hereby wish the Rotary Club of Fort Myers continued success in this year. Signed by Board of County Commissioners Chairman Cecil Pendergrass.
Awesome. Congratulations. Somebody's going to have to nominate a spokesperson for.
Same thing.
Yeah.
We have two.
See y'all again.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. Thank you. Congratulations. 100 years. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll get an official picture here. Thank you. And who would like to say anything at the podium, please? Thank you. Go ahead and give them that one.
I would just like to thank the commissioners and, of course, Lee County for always supporting the Rotary Club here in Fort Myers. It is an honor to be here today to recognize our 100th anniversary. Many of the things that we've done you probably don't know, but some of the things you may be familiar with, the royal palm trees down McGregor Boulevard, the sidewalks that you walk up and down McGregor Boulevard, getting I-75 kind of started here earlier than it was planned through T. Wayne Miller's efforts. But we're very proud to be here, and we're very proud to be part of Fort Myers, and there's such a history here in Lee County, and we look forward to serving it for another 100 years, of course, and doing community service. Gay Thompson, of course, is our first female president, so we're happy to have her here today as well. Our past president, Bob Sheehan, and our past president, Skip Camp, as well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, and sorry we missed Commissioner Mann. We'll obviously show him the pictures and everything. You'll see him at the next meeting, I'm sure. So
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have him. We'll make sure he sings and pays his fine for not being at this meeting.
yes, he will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow, this is amazing. 100 years. Time flies, doesn't it? To move on to the recap, we have a couple items to be deferred, C9 and A2. Get a motion for
I'll
this?
make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Was there any public comment on deferring C9 and A2? Being none, we'll come back to the board. Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. Move on to consent agenda items. Items to be pulled by discussion of the board. Commissioner Hammond, do you have any items to be pulled?
I have none this morning.
I have none. Commissioner Sandelli? Nope. Commissioner Ryan? None. This time, public comment on the balance of the items. We have one card for item 18, Connie Dennis. Morning. Just come to the podium there, Connie. You don't have the microphone's on. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Connie Dennis, and I'm secretary for Alva Inc. And item 18 regards the traffic study that you're going to do on Joel Boulevard and Highway 80. And I just want to say we're so happy that you're doing that it's something that's been a need for a long time. And just thank you very much for being able to do that for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the consent agenda items? Being none, we'll come back to the board. We have a motion for the,
I'll move the item.
we have a motion, we have a second. Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Administrative agenda, item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Item number 1, we are asking you to consider modifying the plan to phase out local contractor licensing consistent with state law, and Mr. Loveland will make the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Last October, you had approved a plan to phase out local licensing based on state action to supersede local licensing for contractors. The plan you approved allowed us to do an additional year of our local licensing. We issue about 2,400 local licenses. That's going to expire September 30th of this year. The idea was to provide time for those contractors that may have to go get a state license, time to do that. We also need time to get clarification on the intent of the bill and some of the ramifications. We, along with Commissioner Hammond, participated in a conference call, Zoom call last week with Representative Gio Lombardo's office, he was one of the sponsors of the bill, and got a little bit of better understanding. There's some opportunity potentially for some additional clarification through the legislative process. So we're asking the board to extend the local licenses that would expire at September 30th of this year to June 30th of 2023, which is the state deadline for local licenses, to give us the maximum amount of time to sort through all these issues and make sure everybody's covered as best as possible.
Great. Any questions for staff?
No questions for staff, Mr. Chairman, but I would elaborate a little bit on the meeting that we had. So you all may remember a couple meetings ago, we had a gentleman who builds docks come and speak in public comment, and his major concern was he's licensed locally through Lee County because he works in Lee County, and his concern was if we were to shut down our local licensing department, he would have to then go get a state license. Well, you know, for a person who's been building docks for 30 years, who knows how to build one probably blindfolded, you know, to have to go through and retake the state exam, which is, I believe, more rigorous than the qualifications are more rigorous than the local exam, seemed rather excessive. So, you know, that's the problem that we have right now that we're facing. There are some folks that when we shut down our local licensing at the end of this period, they're going to either have to find a license to work under or go take the state exam. And so I don't know what the fix is, but I do think we should probably give direction to our staff today to work towards a legislative amendment that we could suggest or take to our local delegation and ask them to make that would help these folks out who are in that area of being locally licensed, already in business, but would then officially or effectively be out of a business once this gets shut down.
Thank you. Commissioner Sandell?
I would agree. I think the pressure on the construction industry in general is arduous right now based on a number of different factors. And so giving some latitude now and looking at perhaps a long-term fix would be appropriate.
I think that makes sense. I really do.
Great. Thank you.
Great idea.
Thank you, Dave. Anything else? Because we had some public comment on this. No? Okay, so we have public comment on this. Item Alan Bills, and after Alan, it would be Robert Russell. Come to the podium and state your name. You got 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. My name is Alan Bills, and yes, concerning Bill 735, it's going to create a big hardship, not giving us much time. If it could be granted to June 30th of 23 would allow us a little bit more time to get this supposedly the bill that is being in question. You know, like I spoke to Don Shaw, the executive director of the State Board of Licensing in the state, and he says it's being misinterpreted. However, he's not telling me where or how. It would allow us some time to figure out where this misinterpretation lays. I believe it lays with the state. Henry County has given us time till June 30th of 2023. This will allow us, you know, almost a year to be able to get a grasp on what the state actually wants. I've taken a block test, you know, 32 years ago, which allowed me to work, and I have no interest in working through the state. I've worked in Henry and Lee County exclusively for my career. I don't have any use for a state, you know, to be able to go to any other place in the state. I just don't have any use for that, and I don't think it's fair. It's almost to the point of the state blackmailing me, saying, well, close your doors or take our test. And I just don't think that's fair, and I think there's been a misunderstanding somewhere along the line. So I hope that you could grant us this extra time so we have the time to get this straightened out. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I appreciate you working with us, understanding our situation. September just is not going to give us enough time. I can't believe, I mean, since this is statewide, I can't believe the state has, I can't believe they can handle tens of thousands of licenses in that period of time. So I want to try to get some things straightened out, and to be honest with you, I'm quite confused about everything myself. But I do want to keep working. You know, this is my livelihood, and a lot of people, it's not just contractors, it's the people that work for them. You know, so if I have a friend that has 54 contractors, or 54 employees, you know, they're going to be without a job. And that's just one person.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I understand you're paying every time they go in session, we have to deal with this, so we get it. Robert Russell, please. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name's Robert Russnell. I own Russnell Marine Construction. I achieved my marine contractor's license back in 1996 and been in business ever since. Alan Bills and I have been talking about this new bill, and we're trying to come up with a solution. My personal opinion or feelings, I feel like I committed a crime that I'm getting everything taken away from me. After all this hard work and being successful, you know, building docks and doing seawalls. I have my kids involved right now, my daughter and son. Our plan was for one of them to get their state certified license, but this all happened too fast, and we don't have time to do that. So, like Alan said, we don't want to close our doors. We don't want to do jobs without permits, and I really don't want to use somebody else's license to continue. So, it's very important to us if you could consider extending it so we can try to plan for that.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on this item? Okay, we'll come back to the board for more discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion for approval today to extend the time as requested by staff. And then also I'd like to add on to it direction to staff to investigate a potential legislative amendment that we could propose through our legislative agenda later this year.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion on that? I had a question for staff. So if we ran out of time on this, who would actually be enforcing to go around to each business to see if they're licensed or not? And would that affect them obtaining permits or not? So I'm not sure if that'd be somebody from community development, or Dave, would that be something? So if these gentlemen, if the time goes, we go forward a year, the state doesn't do anything, time runs out again, who would actually how would it affect their businesses the next morning? Could they still open up and still do business? And who actually would be checking to see if they ever have a license or not? Because we always have that problem now with unlicensed handyman workers out there every day doing work, doing roofs without permits and without license. So how would it affect them?
Well, it was clear from the discussion last week that part of the intent of the bill was to allow some work to be done without having to have a license to do that. The question is going to be what permit categories are we going to have that require a licensed contractor to pull that permit? And so that's part of what we're sorting through at our end and trying to get clarification from the state where a licensed contractor is necessary to pull the permit. If they don't have a license through us anymore, they'll have to get a license through the state in order to be able to pull that permit or work under somebody else's license.
I'm just thinking, like we heard today and we heard before, you know, the state, 100,000 people out there are probably licensed. The state is not capable of out there going and checking that. So I'm not sure what capacity they were looking at monitoring this or applying the licensing to. That's why I was just curious, what were they thinking ahead, if they were thinking ahead, how they're going to respond to this?
I don't know that they were thinking ahead. It seems like the Department of Business and Professional Regulation representatives were on the call the other day. I think this legislative change caught them cold somewhat, and they're having to respond to all of these questions that are coming up and try to understand what was intended and what they're going to have to do at their end to deal with this.
What was, I know you yourself and Commissioner Hammond was involved with different calls. What was their original reasoning to bring this up in the first place? Do we know what they were trying to fix the first time? What the state's intention was, their initial bill?
Yeah, again, I think part of it was they thought locals were requiring licenses for activities that they didn't think that should be necessary.
Like irrigation and stuff like that?
Like painting and irrigation and some of those, although the state does actually have an irrigation license itself.
Okay.
We'd also heard there were some local jurisdictions that may have been requiring people to get a local license in addition to the state license they already had. So, but I don't know for sure if that's true.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion?
Real quick, I could add, Commissioner Pendergrass, Mr. Chairman, on the call, we asked about the legislative intent so that we could understand that. And from the representative's office, the person on the phone representing Representative G. Lombardo, she said that it was the legislative intent to eliminate some licenses, basically, to make some work be allowed to take place without a license. And two categories that they mentioned where that would be possible now is like fencing. So if you're a company that builds fences, you actually can build fences now and pull permits without a license. There's no statewide licensing for fence building, and so there shouldn't be. This is basically, Dave, correct me if I'm explaining it incorrectly, but they kind of explained on the call, yeah, so we just don't believe building fences is an activity you need to be licensed for. And so that was one. And then the other thing was signage, sign companies. So they don't think you need to be able to be licensed to build signs anymore unless the sign has electric attached to it, in which case you would need a licensed electrician to do the electric work. But if not, so it was an interesting call. I guess their legislative intent was to remove government regulation from certain activities that they don't feel need to be regulated. Because I think there were other counties that were probably a lot more heavy-handed than Lee County is on their licensing, and I think that's what they were going after.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Any other discussion before we call for motion? We have a motion with a second. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we move to public hearing.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Halverson, County Attorney's Office. I have your first and only public hearing this morning. Item number 1 is a petition to vacate the public's interest in the 12-foot platted public utility and drainage easement centered along the common property lot line between lots 9 and 10 of the platted lots at 5005 Barron Street and Lehigh Acres. There were no objections to the request of vacation. This item has been duly advertised, and I've provided the affidavit of publication of the clerk. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions for staff? Any public comment on this public hearing 1? Come back to the board.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Thank you. We have no walk-on carryover items. We have commissioner items. Commissioner Wang, give me commissioner item. Commissioner Sandelli. No. Commissioner Hammond.
None?
I'm the only one. Okay, so I think the board is pretty familiar with the Regional Planning Council here. The last few years, this board has took some action. Back in 2017, I believe it was, this board actually voted, along with other 5 counties, to not fund the local Regional Planning Council. So recently, 2 weeks ago, I'm one of the representatives there, myself and Commissioner Bam at the meeting, and they actually took the first motion they actually made was to have the RPC direct the county attorneys to review their new bylaws and interlocal agreements. After they took a motion, made a second, I pointed out that the RPC didn't have the statutory requirements to direct the county attorneys to do that action. Since the county attorneys work for the Board of County Commissioners, they rescinded their motion and redid it. Then they sent all of us an invitation where they would like to come to our board meeting and give us like a 30-minute presentation about why they want to rebrand and redo a local agreement with the RPC. Part of that, and I also provided that to the county attorney to do a cursive review of that, and we'll ask Richard to follow up a little bit on that. But basically, the view, what I saw basically is the new local agreement they were trying to create is the RPC over the last 5 years. Let's really be realistic. It's downsized. They have no authority, have no statutory requirements in DCAs or anything else. So they're just trying to find a reason to stay alive, and I get it. And we've been participating. Myself and Commissioner May has been going to all the meetings and participating. But They're just trying to find a way to rebrand themselves. But the new way with the new local agreement they created an executive board that consists of 6 members, and based upon convenience, they can have a quorum. If there's not enough quorum there to have a regular meeting, they have a convenience meeting of the executive meeting, which could be 3 people could vote as that. Then they're also requiring they were asking to the counties to be if they still be paying members, but not have a vote if they weren't present. So I have some concerns about that. Richard, would you like to follow up a little bit about what you learned from that document provided to us?
Certainly. Mr. Chairman, board members, good morning. We did have the opportunity to look at the proposed interlocal agreement and proposed revised bylaws in an overview fashion. It was by no means an exhaustive review, but even in the overview fashion, it raises some substantial questions that I would like to raise for your all's consideration as we potentially move forward. First off, I think it's not an overstatement to indicate that these 2 documents, when read together, if approved, would creep into this board's home rule authority. And by that I mean in certain sections, it would require this board, or could be read to require this board, to affirmatively vote to adopt any proposed changes to the interlocal agreement or bylaws as recommended by the RPC, thereby depriving you of the ability to make that determination on behalf of Lee County. Secondly, Commissioners, as the chairman indicated, there's a section in the proposed interlocal agreement that calls for the establishment of an executive committee, which in and of itself is not unusual nor problematic. But in this case, it talks about the executive committee being cloaked with the authority to deal with any matters when it would be impossible or inconvenient to convene a full meeting of the full council. Inconvenient is not defined, anywhere in the interlocal agreement. So in theory, the president, the sitting president at that time, could declare it inconvenient to convene a full council meeting and conduct the business of the council with or without full representation of the members' counties. Next, there is a section in the proposed interlocal agreement that requires the boards of county commissioners to include in their annual budget the proportionate share based on population necessary to fund the RPC's ongoing budget. Commissioners, this is a radical change from the existing interlocal agreement, specifically that portion that Lee County and other participating counties have relied upon to not pay dues since 2017. In the existing interlocal agreement, the obligation to pay dues is permissive on the part of the member counties. This revised agreement would make it mandatory. Furthermore, it would suspend any county's voting authority at any time that a dues payment was outstanding. So not only would you be compelled to pay dues in the event you decided not to pay dues, your voting rights in the RPC would be suspended. Lastly, and this is somewhat beyond the scope of our office, but I want to point it out to you anyway. In the proposed revised interlocal agreement, there is a section under powers and duties, and one in particular stands out, and that is, and I quote, to provide consulting services to a private developer or landowner for a project, if not serving in a review capacity in the future. Commissioners, that would put the RPC in the possible position of being in competition with the private sector that provides those type services. In a nutshell, as the chairman pointed out, the RPCs in the past had a very legitimate purpose in the state of Florida following the adoption of the 1985 Growth Management Act when they had regulatory authority. Given our review of both the proposed interlocal agreement and the amended bylaws, it seems as though that this is just a government body that's looking for a purpose to continue its functions. With that, I'm available for any questions that the board might have.
Any questions for Richard regarding his findings? My concern is being when they made the mandatory payment from the county, I was trying to justify how we can use Lee County tax dollars to pay an entity that doesn't even have a location. If you wanted to go to the RPC right now and meet with them, there's nowhere to go. There's no existing office. It does not exist. So what's the purpose of the RPC? What does that benefit the Lee County taxpayers, for myself, Commissioner Hammond, or any other commissioner or staff to attend these meetings per time and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that would be required of this new local agreement, what's the purpose of it? When they serve we don't use any of their services now, they would serve no purpose. I can't make a motion being chair, but I have a comment I'd like to make a motion where if somebody wants to make the motion, second it, regarding this. I was obviously been through all this information, been meeting with Richard about this, so I'm very informed about it. So if I'd like to go ahead and say this now. If there was a motion made, decline invitation to the RPC delegation to present to the county, decline further work or review on the revised interlocal agreement, nor the revised bylaws, seek legislative amendment to Chapter 186 Florida statutes to make membership of regional planning councils permissive rather than mandatory, direct the chairman to send a notice to the Board of County Commissioners' actions today to the chairperson of the remaining 5 counties of the RPC and the RPC chairman.
So moved.
Second.
Do
We have that motion. We have a second. Any other comments or discussions?
Yeah, I think Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I think your strategy is a good one here. I think, look, we made this decision back, I think in 2017, probably 5 years ago, that the RPC had outlived its useful life, right? It is, as our county attorney very aptly stated, it is an agency in search of a mission at this point. And, it's funny, many people will remember Ronald Reagan once said the closest thing to eternal life is a government agency because they live forever. This is one that we just have not had use for anymore. And so we stopped paying for it. The legislature stopped paying for it. We stopped paying for it. And now, as you mentioned, they don't even have a facility where people can go and deal with them anymore. And I think it is time that we work very hard with our local delegation and with the legislature to make this a permissive thing. There are some counties that do like their RPC and that do use their RPC. So they should be allowed to if they want to, home rule, all those good things. But we should also have the home rule and the ability to say we don't want to be part of one here. And so I think that's a really good strategy to be on.
Thank you.
I mean, I agree with Commissioner Hammond. Furthermore, I mean, we did have the financial responsibility, my recollection, not sitting up here, but we used to also pay for Cape Coral. So, I mean, when I was mayor of Sanibel, we withdrew from that responsibility. And if you think back, the RPC was connected to the MPO, and the separation of the two, and that's why we have an executive committee for the MPO. I mean, the overhead at that point in time was hard to justify. And that's going back, like you had indicated, 5-6 years ago. So I agree, there's really not a purpose looking at the restrictions on the new bylaws. I don't know why we want to continue to spend any energy or time on this.
Okay, great, thank you.
My only comment is that as a community, we have a lot of people that are serving in a lot of different capacities. We saw the Rotary Club here today with some of the other organizations. Purpose is important to all of us, and I would encourage those that are currently involved in the RPC to look for other avenues to continue their service. I think they, with the best of intentions, have tried to carry that forward, and we have a lot of purpose to fulfill. So,
thank you. We have a motion. We have a second on that motion. Is there any objections? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you. And the clerk, I'll provide you a copy of that motion too. Thank you. And I'd like to point out we have our constitutionalists here this morning. We have Matt Caldwell, the park praiser, and Kevin Carnes here, our clerk of court. So thank you for joining us this morning. Okay, committee appointments. Commissioner Hammond.
I have one reappointment this morning, Mr. Chairman. It is Robert Wells to the Tourist Development Council.
Second.
Any public comment on that? We'll come back to any objection. No objection. Motion carries. I have a few here. I'm going to need a motion in a second. So I have a new one for Charles Johnson for the TDC. Jay Johnson. New one, Carl Baxter, the Affordable Housing. Reappointment of Nora Deemers to the St. Carlos Park Improvement District. Reappointment Pam Cronin to the TDC. And new appointment Claudia Perfect to the Affordable Housing.
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any objections? Any public comment? No objections. Thank you. Commissioner Sandelli, do you have any?
No.
Commissioner?
I do have one. I have a reappointment for Edward Elms to the Eagle Technical Committee.
Second.
Any public comment on that? Come back. Motion carries. Thank you. County Manager, Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, not for the privilege today.
Okay, great. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a report that we will not be seeking an extension of the burn ban. Thanks to the good Lord above and the recent rainfalls, that is not needed any further in Lee County. So,
And there's
thank
no
you.
fires, no mulch fires this week either. That's a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll go into public comment for matters concerning citizens. Thank you. Danny Ballard?
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, County. Just 3 announcements, basically. The 14th of May, don't forget we have our golf clash, first we've had, and it's at Cape Royal. This week, you need to get it in if you want to play. Get your team together. We got to give them information this week. So that's announcement 1. Announcement number 2 is that we are partnering with County Solid Waste. We're going to have another hazardous waste collection day on the 21st of May at the North Fort Myers Rec Center, and I think it runs from 8 to 11. We would encourage anybody in North Fort Myers, if you've got waste you need to get rid of, that's the day, and we will be there with them. The third thing, this year we're going to be able to bring back hurricane seminars since basically COVID has gone away. On our June meeting, we will have Matt Devitt from Wink TV is going to be the speaker. And then I'm working with the county, and we're hoping in July that we can have a agriculture hurricane seminar. Well, this was in the plans, in the works before COVID. So now we're going to try to put it back on the calendar, do it at our July meeting. I'll bring you back information as we work towards that with Lee County. Because when we started to do this 3 years ago, there had never in the history of Lee County been a hurricane agriculture. So working with the county, hopefully we can get this back up. And because you all know in North Fort Myers, we are one of the larger agriculture areas in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jasmine Miller.
Good morning, everyone. Jasmine Miller, JD. Just want to tell everyone today that in the Bible, it refers to our Father as a God of sight. He's a God that sees everything. He sees us today, and he knows what's going to happen way before it happens. I just want to wish all of you men a very happy day, and I hope you are helping the homeless. The homeless, they're children. They're God's children. And you know why I call them children? Because, yeah, they have nothing, but God makes sure they're taken care of. And he entrusted you and allowed you to sit on your seats to make sure you take care of them. So when you get the money and you dish out the money to the Office of the Veterans and Homeless Services, I hope you're overseeing them. Rapid rehousing, let me repeat, is for 24 months. And when you kick out the homeless woman out of our program, I hope you have a very legitimate, and I direct this to the lawyers, a legal standard to kick them out of their rapid rehousing. And I hope you're policing that office. Have a great day.
Thank you. Next speaker is Willie Joe Schottmiller. Willie, when you come forward, please do not touch the microphone. It moves. Do not touch the microphone. It moves. It changes the volume. Just don't touch the microphone.
Pardon?
Do not touch the microphone. Just
Don't touch it.
yeah, don't touch the microphone.
Okay, I won't.
Changes the volume. Thank you.
As Jasmine was saying, there is no excuse with all the resources and buildings that could be utilized that people on the street. I got a card from Roger and the advocates that are working to try to get something going in this community to get the funding. I have not heard back from you, so I would like to talk to you after. And the parks, they're, you know, the grills have been taken out of a lot of the parks, Lions Park. The only place I know right now is Chandler Park, and that is nothing but right now turning into a drug den and a drunken brawl place, you know, and that's sad. So working together, getting the places intact for affordable housing emergency is what is needed, you know. We need some place for people to go. Affordable, nobody's saying free. Like Salvation Army years ago, there was $8, $10 a day and they got breakfast, so there's no excuse why we can't put something together, working as a continuum of care, the nonprofits, the churches, to have something. Youth hostel would be good. The old building that the police will be moving out once the other is built would make an excellent youth hostel, bring in revenue for the county and the city, because people would stay catching a Greyhound while not wanting to sit outside and that they'd rent a room for the night, a bed for the night, you know. So there's options out there that we can explore to help the nonprofits as well as the county and the city. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment this time? No? Okay, we'll come back to the board. Let's say thank you, staff. It's been a good morning. It's only 10:15. And for anybody that watched the city meeting last night, I think they adjourned after 9:30 last night. So all the ex-city employees in here, I'm sure you're enjoying this early meeting this morning. So thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and take adjourn. Thank you.